you will have an overall larger fat mass,
Sure.
but you'll be adding more muscle than fat, hopefully, if you're doing it right.
If you're in the caloric surplus. Now,
Exactly.
a lot of people think that in order to gain that muscle, you have to be in a drastic caloric surplus, like 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes 1,000 calories over. But really, that's not true. You have to be in a caloric surplus. So that can be up to what, 100 calories, 200 calories. It doesn't have to be a lot. It just needs to be just above that maintenance phase. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree. You don't want to be too far over because then you will be adding more fat than you will be adding muscle.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you want the ratio.
That's not where we want to be.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
You want the ratio.
Right. Yep. I would say, I'd like my athletes to be at least 250 calories over their maintenance phase, and then no more than 300, 400, 500 maybe at the max if they're really trying to if they're still growing and ramping things up pretty high.
Yeah, and I think there's a good place for that 500 calorie surplus if you're throwing a lot of 1, 3, 5 rep maxes their way.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing a lot of sprint explosive training, if you have them on the football field doing sprints on sprints, it's probably a good idea to have a little bit extra oomph in there with some calories, just because you're going to be burning it off anyways, right? And you want kind of that glycogen surplus to be able to explode and hang in there for a good 35, 40-minute sprint activity run. So I think that's good. Now, as far as fat loss, and when it comes to or as far as muscle building, when it comes to strength training, what do you teach? What do you got going on over there?
We kind of touched on this last time we spoke, but we do every day we like to do 5. I like to do 5 basic movements. That would be a knee dominant movement, which would be a squat family, lunge, whatever. A hip dominant movement, which could be a good morning. It could be a deadlift. A push, which would be your bench press, your push-ups, and a pull, which would be like a row or a pull-up. At the beginning of every workout, we like to do explosive work, such as like a hang clean or some sort of jumping activity. And then at the end, we do some core stability exercises because, like we've talked about before, is your core is built to keep you upright, not flex you forward. That's actually really tough on your back. So the only time you do your flexing forward is when you roll up out of bed. And so your core is actually meant to keep you upright. And so that's what we try to focus on.
Dope.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about like a really heavy set, like maybe working on a 5 rep max or something like that, and then you go right into some sort of explosive set? So for example, so say you do a barbell squat, you do a front squat, and you go right into single leg like box jumps or something like that, something that really works on explosive movements. Do you teach that? Is that something that you're all about?
Yep, definitely. And that's called something specific. I can't think of it right now. But when you do,
either.
yeah, I know. And so a lot of times in my program for what I do for myself is like if I'm doing a bench press, I'll do my 5 reps at a significant weight, and then I'll hop down right off the bench right after I do my set and do some explosive push-ups where I have to push myself up, get on the bench, and hold myself all the way up. And so, yeah, I do like that component. Not always, but it's good to work in, definitely switch things up once in a while.
Sure. And the thing that a lot of people get confused with that style is that they think that it's the same as sticking with your example, they think it's the same as doing that bench press and then just taking a lot of the weight off and then doing it again. And it's completely different. Taking yourself off of that bench press, putting yourself into a push-up position is so much more of a core stability and core strengthening exercise. And you're working a whole lot more muscle groups when you go from that bench press to that push-up. So it's important to make sure you have that distinction instead of just doing the same thing with just lighter weight. It's not wrong, but know what you're trying to accomplish with it.
Right. You're trying to be explosive. And a lot of times when doing explosive movements, you're either doing extremely lightweight or body weight exercises. So, you want to be able to move yourself as fast as you can, not necessarily move this heavy weight at a medium speed. You're trying to move quickly and efficiently. So that's what we try to do.
Sure. How often do you mix in, sprint work and agility work with your athletes? Is there a specific phase that you go through probably during the off season, or are you spending the off season trying to get as strong as possible?
Really in the off season, trying to get them as strong as possible, and then other than that, just going to play their sport. That's kind of what is going to be their sport specific training, is going out and playing their sport and doing the athletic things that come along with it. That being said, every day with my young athletes that I train at the gym that I work at, we are doing some sort of coordination explosive drill. And that's usually right at the beginning, right after our warm up, we do some sort of ladder drill. And granted, our space is fairly limited, so we don't have a long turf area to sprint at, but we do a lot of sprint starts because that's kind of, a big part of explosive athletes. And I'm not dealing a whole lot with like cross country runners, which is, you're training a whole different phase of the body versus, soccer players, baseball players. You got to keep going really fast and then you get up to top speed. And that's the hard part, is training the getting up to that top speed and being explosive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that to be the biggest challenge with most young athletes is just their acceleration capabilities is relatively poor, and it's not their fault. They just haven't figured out their body mechanics very well yet, and
Right.
And most of the time they're not taught at a young age to be crisp and to be form dominant. They're pretty sloppy, and
Right.
once you fix that, you can kind of see that jump when it comes to quality of acceleration. But yeah, you're right. I feel like that's the biggest thing for most young athletes, is to really start working on how they're running, how they move, and just understanding their body better, because it's not talked about. It's not taught very well when you're 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 years old. I mean, did your high school teacher, PE teacher, teach you about your gait? Probably not.
No, nope. But I would say that the part of that is due to maturity and just the overall coordination you have when you're growing up. I mean, some of the best athletes I know have the rare combination of being bigger than everyone, but having the same amount of coordination. So developing that coordination at a young age is kind of what I focus on. That neural development is really important at a young age. And so that's kind of the first thing that we see. And you get that by playing multiple sports, growing up and doing these training things that I'm incorporating, but you can get the same sort of coordination development if you are playing 2, 3, 4 sports.
Cool. Sweet. Now, what about, I'm sure you have fat loss clients, even some of your athletes, I'm sure, need to lean down. What kind of strength training stuff are you doing over there? I'm curious.
Just trying to do big movements, get the most bang for your buck when you're in the gym. You don't need to be spending 2 hours in the gym 5 days a week. I work out 2 to 3 times a week strength training right now, just trying to maintain, but it's working pretty well for me because I do hit all these big movements, bust my butt in the gym and get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I preach, is hitting all these big muscle groups. Like we said, we're doing our squats, we're doing our pushes, we're doing our pulls, doing our hip dominant movements, trying to get everything involved as much as we can. And that's kind of where we go. As far as fat loss, what we're trying to do is sort of a HIIT training, a high intensity interval training. And that could be some weights and some dynamic movements, trying to increase our EPOC. Have you heard of that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So our excess post-exercise oxygen consumption.
Yeah,
basically. So do you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, we're just talking oxygen debt, right?
Right.
Yeah. When it comes to fat loss, the whole idea and what I preach is you just want to be efficient with what you're doing. The more efficient that you can become, the less amount of effort that you have to put in, right? It's just It's working smarter, not harder. And so if you get really good at working on your EPOC, what you end up doing is you end up finishing that workout, but your muscles are striving for some sort of consumption of something to replenish and go back to normal. And that oxygen debt, that nutrient debt, and that process where your muscles are trying to go from that state to feeling normal again takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of calorie consumption, And
Yep.
it's a great way for you to continue to burn calories when you're out of the gym. And that's
Yeah, exactly. And that it takes 24 to 48 hours to fully recover and get back to your normal steady state oxygen consumption. It's
Mhm.
not like you're going to go home 3 hours later and still be huffing and puffing or anything like that. You don't even notice it, but you are consuming more oxygen. Your body is wanting more oxygen. And so it's kind of a passive calorie burner, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings up a really good point, because I work out 3 times a week. When I'm in the winter, when I'm really trying to do some crazy stuff, I might do 4. But
Mhm.
I work out 3 times a week. I see incredible gains that way. I see great
Yeah.
muscle development. And the reason why is because if you're going hard to the degree that you probably should be going, and everybody's degree is different, right? If you're brand new to the gym, it can be very, very basic, very simple stuff, but that's hard to you, easy for me. So it's all
Mhm.
relative. But
Mhm.
if you're going at the pace and the intensity that you should be, you don't need more than 3 times a week in the gym,
Mhm.
because you want those recovery moments. You want that 24 hours off, because you're still getting a lot of bang for your buck during that 24 hours of rest, anyways. So you might as well utilize it so you can come back into the gym feeling strong, having momentum, and seeing some progressive gains as far as strength and fat loss is concerned. Would you agree with that too?
Yes, I would. And kind of to go off of that, I'll give you kind of a baseball analogy because that's where we kind of both come from.
Yeah.
As a pitcher, we talk about the best pitch thrown with conviction is better than, or sorry, the worst pitch thrown with conviction is better than the best pitch thrown with, questions in your head. So I think you can take that into the gym, whereas, if you have the worst program ever, but you do it full bore and intense and give it your all, that's going to be better than this scientifically built program, but you kind of just half-heartedly go through your workout. So
Yes.
anything's going to work, especially for, if you're trying to lose fat, get moving and jump in and go for it.
Absolutely. Because when it comes to losing fat, it's this balance effect of less is more, be efficient, and be consistent. I
Hmm.
mean, if you do whatever strength training thing is your thing, right? If you love to just kick your own ass by doing 1,000 reps of something, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you really enjoy it, if you're consistent with it and you can maintain it for the next 60 years so you can keep the weight off, then cool. Let's freaking get after it and let's do 1,000 jump ropes, you know?
Right.
But the idea is to find that balance where it doesn't, strength training isn't running your life. Like you're not in the gym 2 hours a day, 7 days a week. You're
Right.
seeing good results, 1 to 2 pounds a week of fat loss. You have good muscle recovery, so you don't feel fatigued and you don't have any neural fatigue.
Mhm.
And you're doing something that you enjoy, right? If you hate barbells, you probably shouldn't be lifting barbells every day you're in there. You should probably
Right.
find something that you enjoy so you can stick with it, right? And that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing when it comes to fat loss, especially with the clients that I see. Um, Most of them are either new or either new to the gym, or they are not coming from a college athletic background, so they don't have that team atmosphere of strength training, and
Mhm.
so they're coming from a place where they have no desire to make strength training their number one thing in the world, and all they do is eat, breathe, and sleep it, right? And so you have to find that balance effect to where they can go to the gym, they're excited to be there, they get a great workout in, they feel like they accomplished something, and then they see that accomplishment on the scale in about a week, right?
Yeah.
So
I
um,
think part of that is the importance of a coach. We are able to see, maybe the greatness in them that they don't ever think is possible. And that goes into mindset training, goal setting, and all that stuff. So something we did at our gym, which I thought was really cool. I had this idea of painting this whole big wall in our gym black and writing our clients' goals up there. And so we did that, and it's been a really cool experience. It draws attention. Um, it captures your eye. People have their goals and they got to stay accountable to them because they walk in, they see that goal and everyone else sees it too. So just kind of coaching that mindset that, you step in the gym, you're Superman for an hour and then you can go back to being John, being Kyler. So
absolutely.
it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And that's huge, right? And a lot of people, you've probably heard this, right? Fat loss starts in the kitchen, right?
Definitely,
Or abs
definitely.
start in the kitchen, things like that.
Mhm.
Really, your fat loss goal starts in your mind, right? Because your body goes where your mind allows it. So if
Mhm.
you have these limiting belief systems, if you're negative coming into the gym, if you don't think you're going to be able to accomplish what you're about to go set on, then you're setting yourself up for failure. So yeah, absolutely. Mental training is huge, especially
Mhm.
in my world. If you've never picked up a weight before, you're probably pretty nervous.
Yep.
You probably don't know if it's going to work, and you probably are a little confused when it comes to just the flow of things. You feel like everything's kind of choppy and there's no rhythm or rhyme to what you're doing. And
Right.
so just having that belief system and just trusting in what you and I are doing, trusting in what we're saying, and then trusting in your own ability to succeed and be okay with that learning curve of, being a little rocky and being a little choppy and not having
Mhm.
everything figured out. It's okay. We've been doing this for a really long time and we're still learning and we're still choppy at things sometimes. So,
Yep.
understanding that you might be a really good banker, but you're not good at weights yet, and that's
Right.
okay.
Right. Exactly. And I think, you touched on that we've been doing this for a long time. And sometimes it's hard for us to be put in these people's shoes who have never maybe lifted a weight before.
Sure.
It's important for us to make sure we're encouraging them. And something that I preach is, try to pick out two specific times, specific times in the gym where you show positive body language. I
Mm.
have one client that before he enters the gym, he goes, Superman. He opens up, he just does that motion, and it helps him out.
I
I
freaking love that, man.
keeping people, chest up, shoulders back, smiling once in a while. I think all those things are really important as far as coaching the mindset and being positive in the gym, making it a positive experience, because you keep doing that, even if you fake it, eventually it becomes habit and it becomes real.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's something that I definitely try to consistently give to my clients is make them laugh, make them have fun, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And part of that is us, right? If they come into the gym and you're in a bad mood, it's going to be a rocky hour. If
Mhm.
they come into the gym and they've had a bad day, and then all of a sudden this huge positive energy comes towards them in the form of you and me, that's
Mhm.
a huge mind shift for them, and that's a big deal because if they're going from a negative situation at work to a negative situation in the gym, that's not going to help them. It's not going to motivate them to come back either, which is just going to hurt them in the long run. So it's definitely a big responsibility on our part to make sure that we're coming in with really good positive energy. We're teaching them, we're coaching them, and we're having a lot of that positive energy to just kind of give to them, because that's what they really need, right? If they've
Yeah.
never been in the gym before, if they're nervous, they just want to know that they belong and that they're loved there, and that they
Yeah.
can do what they're there to do, right? So the big deal, big deal.
Yeah, the gym. I mean, the gym is for everybody, and one of the coolest things that we see as strength coaches is someone come in with their head down and having a bad day, and by the end of the hour, they're up, they're smiling, they're happy, their energy shift is totally changed, and so that's something really satisfying for us to see.
Absolutely. When it comes to those clients that struggle to find that motivation and find that consistency when it comes to getting into the gym and then giving their best effort while they're there, what are some things that you try to teach them, try to coach them with in order to kind of find that, I don't know, that fire, that spark to kind of kick them into gear to really get the most that they can out of each workout?
It's really simple. We ask them why. Why are they there? That's kind of what it comes down to. Remember, you're stepping in the gym for a reason. It's not a mandatory thing. It's your choice. You don't have to be there. But is the reason why you're there more important than you being negative for that day?
Mm.
And so that's kind of the big thing for me, is just remembering you're there for a purpose. You're not there just going through the motions. And if that's not powerful enough for you, then maybe the gym isn't the right place for you right
Right.
now.
Absolutely. Something that I have written on my board quite often. I do a quote of the day, and I write it on the whiteboard.
Mhm.
And one of my personal favorites is the desire for change has to be greater than the desire to stay the same. And
Mhm.
It's absolutely true. You have to have a goal. You have to have something that you're passionate enough about, and you have to have a reason why you want to accomplish that. It's got to be the real reason why, and that real reason why should be greater than your desire to be complacent with where you're at, or your desire to continue to be negative and not change those mental mindset, habits and things like that. And so,
Right.
When I go through an initial consultation with somebody, when I'm doing nutrition consultations with my clients, things like that, that reason why, the motivator behind your goal is huge for me. So we sometimes spend 1, 2, sometimes even 3 hours finding out why you're there. The real deep reason why, that maybe sometimes you dig and you hide it from either yourself or from me. It took, I have a client right now, it took us almost 2.5 hours to figure out why he was in the gym, because he didn't want to admit it, not to me, but to himself, why he was there. And it's important to understand that, because that motivator is what's going to keep you coming back.
Yeah. So keep asking why. First thing is, why do you want to go to the gym? Well, I want to lose weight. Why do you want to lose weight? Well, I want to look better. Why do you want to look better? Well, it could be a multitude of reasons. So you just keep digging and asking why, and why, and why is the most important question that I find in the fitness world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great exercise. And I've done it on my goals as well. You pick that goal, or you have that client who has that goal, and then you just do that exercise of why, 5, 10, sometimes even 15 times. And you just have to keep getting more specific. And eventually they're like, that's it. That's the number one reason. And okay, now we can get somewhere, because without that number one reason, you're not going to go very far. You have to have that deep desire and that understanding of why you're there. So I think that's great. When it comes
I think it's important. One last little thing on that, is it's to set, I usually set short, medium, and long-term goals, and make sure you're celebrating those as you accomplish them. Even if it's, hey, I want to go to the gym 3 times a week for the next 2 weeks. Heck yeah, celebrate it. Got it done. Do whatever you need to do, but feel good about the things you accomplish. So
I think that's absolutely true. Totally true. When it comes to trying to steer back to strength training stuff, when it comes to fat loss strength training, for someone who's brand new, I'm curious on where you have them start.
Everything of those movements that I talked to you about, the explosive, knee dominant, hip dominant, push, pull, core, auxiliary lifts, those can all be progressed, and they can all be regressed on an infinite scale. You know what I mean? So if someone's brand new, and I've worked with a lot of extremely overweight people who are brand new in a gym, who barely can get around walking, there's always things we can be doing. A lot of times we start with, the squat is kind of the biggest thing. They're not very good at, it takes them a minute to sit down and get up off a chair. So we kind of practice something like that. We do higher box squats. We go down a little ways and come back up, trying to make sure they're not pushing their weight too far forward, getting out on their toes, putting their knees at risk, making sure they have good form with that. And from there, it's like deeper box squats, adding weight, front squats, back squats. It can be progressed on an infinite scale. But the formula stays the same, whether it be for athletes or for someone who's extremely inexperienced. We're doing the same type of things. They're just extremely regressed or extremely progressed.
Absolutely. Yep. And when it comes to starting from scratch, right? Starting from step one, I really believe in getting them to have understanding of their body, right? Body awareness. And so depending on the level of, because I deal with mostly fat loss clients. So depending on the level of how much fat they want to lose and how much, how well they are at moving their body can determine where we start. A lot of my clients start out by teaching them how to lay on the ground and then stand back up again as smoothly and as safely as possible. Because what I find is that that's a big struggle for most people who have 60, 70, 120 pounds to lose, right? Is to teach them how to lay down and stand back up. Something that they do every day that they don't think is very important until they can't stand back up anymore. And so that's sometimes where we start. sticking to those basic movements of sitting down, standing back up again, and then progressing that as they not only become lighter, but become more flexible, and they can go into those range of motions a lot easier, then yeah, you can start throwing in weight. Another thing that I really like that I use with a lot of those clients who don't have a lot of depth are the TRX bands. The TRX bands are great because it really gives you that support. And sometimes they're afraid of falling over, and that TRX band gives them that support and that mental assurance that they're not going to go anywhere, right?
So exactly, and that's a really good tool that I use as well. The thing is, TRX, you can't use it forever. You know, we got to eventually progress into the next phase and add some weight. But TRX, starting out especially, great tool to use. Going back to what you talked about is standing up and being on the floor. I just want to share a little story about a client I've had for the last 6 months. Probably 6 months ago, struggled to get up off the floor very slowly, had to put a hand on a knee, was shaky, and a lot of times I would help her up. And 2 weeks ago, she's like, "Hey, Kyler, watch this." And she rolled over and popped up like it was nothing. And it was awesome. It was really cool to see. And she's like, "I couldn't do that before." I'm like, "Yeah, you're awesome." So,
that's so badass. Cool. That's so cool. Yeah. I think that's great, man. Yeah. I'll go into a story too. I have a client, and she came to me and we had that same problem, right? She had to, when she was laying on her back, she had to roll over to her stomach, push herself up, grab a box, push herself up onto her feet, and then kind of stand up awkwardly. And we have her doing regressed burpees right now. And we have her doing those up downs of laying on your back, standing up again without any boxes, without any assistance whatsoever. She's moving around like that. I got her on the battle ropes now, and she's super excited to continue to learn new things and stuff like that. So she's moving incredibly well. She lost 10 pounds the last month and a half, so she's kicking butt right now. Yeah, super
crushing it.
Yeah, absolutely crushing it. So now, is there anything that you want to touch on? Anything specific before I let you go?
You know, I think the fat loss aspect, I don't know if we touched on it as much as you would have liked or I would have liked as far as strength training goes. I think just keeping it, you know, the high intensity thing is really important if you're doing strength training or if you're doing cardio for someone beginning, because that's kind of when you really increase that excess post exercise oxygen consumption. And so that's just kind of the number one thing I recommend if you're trying to lose body fat percent. You know, I'm not a huge fan of looking at the, you know, total number on the scale. I'm more concerned about what the weight is made of. Is it made of fat? Is it made of muscle? Everyone is a little different, and everyone responds to exercise a little different. So look at what the composition is more important than looking at the total number on the scale.
I agree. I think the scale, I mean, I use a scale because I need the number to come out with the body percentage. Yep. And so, but I really encourage my clients to not be so obsessed about the scale, because if you and I, Kyler, weigh 200 pounds, we both weigh 200 pounds, but you have less fat tissue than I do. You look better, feel better, move better, and have more energy than I will. And you fit in better clothes than I do, because your body composition is better than mine. And to get that idea and to get that point across to clients can sometimes be challenging, because for the last 30 years, all they've cared about is what that scale says. But it's absolutely more important to really understand the body composition and care more about that. What is that weight made out of, right? If you're strength training for the last 3 months, and you've only lost 5 pounds on the scale, but in reality you lost 15 pounds of fat and you just gained some of that muscle back, you're doing pretty good. That's exactly where we wanted you to begin.
I think it's just shifting, you know, we don't want this dogma of the scale. We're shifting that mindset more toward the body composition and understanding that you need strength training as well as cardio, just a blended, you know, a blended marriage to be most efficient with what your goals are.
Absolutely. And a great way to do that is to get you moving. And it doesn't need to be complicated. You know, we talked about this last week, that KISS, keep it super simple. It does not need to be complicated. If you want to do some more higher intensity circuit strength training style stuff in order to just kind of simplify and be efficient with your time, I'm cool with it. If you want to work out for 30 minutes, I'm super all right with that. I just don't suggest for you to work out for 2 hours. But if you would prefer to do like slower strength training and really work on muscle development and then go for a walk afterwards, if you really wanted to do that too, I mean, I wouldn't say no to that either. And so it just comes down to a mixture of what you enjoy, how much time do you want to dedicate to it, and then can you consistently dedicate that time for the next 50 years. If you can only do it for the next 5 weeks, you probably should come up with some sort of different plan, because you're not going to be able to stick to it anyways. So let's find something that's going to be better suited for you. But it doesn't need to be complicated stuff. You know, I have my clients work out for 30 to 50 minutes max. And during that time, we're doing a wide range of body weight stuff, dumbbell work, kettlebell work, functional movement stuff, just because motor patterns and teaching them how to have more body awareness and have strength in those body mechanic movements, it's going to be really important for them to keep safe and to stay safe outside my gym, right? Because you probably agree, a client, an athlete, a fat loss client, whatever, is the safest they'll ever be when they're sitting in front of you. And sometimes they don't really get that because they feel like a gym is where everybody gets hurt. Mm-hmm. But when you have a coach there, you're the safest you'll ever be sitting in front of them doing an exercise than you will be picking up a box in your garage.
Yep, exactly. And I think it all just comes back to why you're there. That's the big question. It all comes back to that. But yeah, that's kind of all I have today, John, if you want to touch on anything else, but I'm pretty good.
That's really it. I think the major key points here is for fat loss, get moving, start working on your strength and full range of motion, and regress or progress depending on your capabilities. For athletes, I think it really comes down to those explosive movements in conjunction to those heavier strength sets to make sure that you're not only developing good muscle development and good strength, but you're putting that muscle and strength into an explosive situation so it can actually have power through movement. I think that's super important. And it comes down to lose weight, caloric deficit, move more, eat a little bit less, but it starts here. Mm-hmm. And it goes to the kitchen, making sure your nutrition's right, and then it heads to the gym, because you don't have to work out a lot. Just need to work out 2 to 3 times a week, and just get your nutrition on straight. And
Yep. Last thing, John, where can everyone watching this find you?
Good question. Well, I'm going to throw this up on YouTube. So
cool.
If you want to go to John Welborn Fitness, you can find that on there. But if you want to go to my blog, just go to fitnesstrainerjohn.com/blog, and you'll be able to find this on there along with all of the other goodies that I talk about and all the other stuff that I preach. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, just go to @mytrainerjohn on Instagram, or Facebook is facebook.com/mytrainerjohn. So keep it pretty simple. What about you?
Yep. Everything for me is @Blades APA, which stands for Blades Athletic Performance Academy. It's my online business. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and my website, bladesapa.com.
Badass. Awesome, Kyler. We'll do this again.
Awesome. Always good to talk to you.
Yeah, likewise. Later, brother.